So thankful that you are here. Even though it's raining, pouring, thundering, and storming outside, we are here, and we're thankful that the Lord has brought us here. So today we are going to be learning about a tough subject, a subject that we don't often talk about, a subject that we don't often, have pulled up in conversation or anything like that, but we do absolutely need to know about it. It is sexual assault. Something that I know I don't talk about on a regular basis. We have to talk to our young people about it as well. So today we have with us from MCASA, we have Stephanie Erdis, and she is going to be sharing with us some information. We're also going to have some activities, so don't give me the weird looks. We are going to be a group that is going to have fun together. So let us open with a word of prayer before we get started. Our Father and our God, we thank you so very much for this wonderful day. Thank you, God, for all that you have taught us thus far. I pray, Father, that your Holy Spirit will be with us this evening, that you would pour out a special blessing upon Stephanie as she brings this information to us. We know that it is a difficult subject to even touch on, to discuss, to have in our regular conversation, but I pray, Father, that your Spirit will give her the words to speak so that it would reach those who are here and also those who would watch the program and listen to it at a later time. I pray our community would be able to heal from things that happen within the community, and bless us, oh God, and keep us. Protect us, Lord, and protect those who are on their way as well. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Like I said, we are going to be discussing some very touchy subjects, prevention, how to have those conversations, the laws that are available right now, and grooming. I know we've heard about grooming. So we're going to be talking about all those things. So I'm going to pass the mic to Stephanie, and she is going to share this information with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and feel very privileged to be here with you all this afternoon. And just excited to talk, have some dialogue, and learn together about, really about sexual assault survivors and what it means to care for them, what it means to care for ourselves, and what that means in our communities. For you all, maybe specifically your church community, but you're part of other communities as well. So I will also stick around afterwards if people have questions that they want to talk about privately, because we are live streaming today. So as someone said earlier, they won't be secrets in this room. Normally we can do that, but since we're having some folks join us from home, just want to make sure everyone knows that and can share at whatever level feels comfortable to them. But the first thing we're going to do, well, one thing before the first thing, so you'll see there's another name on the board. So I'm Stephanie Erdis, the Associate Director at the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. Alyssa is actually at another event, hopefully not getting rained out, so she won't be joining me today, but normally she joins me for this presentation. So it's just me today. So let's talk about... Let's see if we can get my thing to work. Oh, that's me. That's not what I wanted to happen. Oh, no. I can't work the clicker. Okay. Whoever fixed that, thank you. Let's see if we can get it to advance. It was working earlier. Okay. Keep clicking. It's on. Okay. It's not working. Like, where am I headed here? There we go. I think we got it now. Maybe not. Nope. So this is my last slide. So I need to go to the slide that says breathe. And I have my own clicker too, if that's helpful. Yeah, I'm clicking. me see. Is it connected? Oh, that's my light. So that's where it's pointing. Oh, here we go. This is halfway through the presentation, though. That's like slide 20. Where did the other ones go? Thank you for sticking with us, friends, while we figure this out. Let me see. Yeah, take your time. I have a clicker too, if that's helpful. Well, the first thing we're going to do is meditate, so you can all get a jump start on that by just taking some deep breaths. Here's my clicker too, if that's helpful. It might not be, but you can try it. While we're figuring this out, though, I'll just kind of get started with our opening exercise and then tell you a little bit about the organization I work for. So for the first exercise, all we're going to do is kind of relax into the space. So I'm going to invite you, if you are comfortable, we're just going to breathe, just do some quiet reflection to get ready for this training. So if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, just find a spot to kind of relax your gaze in. And just bring your attention to your inhales and your exhales. So you're not forcing air in and out, you're just breathing. You're just feeling the chair support you or the floor support you. And we're going to try to balance out that inhale and exhale so that the inhales are the same amount of time as the exhales. And just relax into this rhythm. And try to, at least for this moment, let your thoughts go. Let go of what you're doing after the presentation. Let go of the rainstorm outside. Let go of what tomorrow brings. And just relax into this moment. We're going to take a deep breath together to the count of 4. So to begin, I invite everyone to exhale all the air in their lungs, and then begin your inhale, filling your lungs to the count of 2, 3, 4. Pausing, holding that air in your lungs, and then exhaling 2, 3, 4. And just letting your lungs be empty. And then begin another deep breath on your own count, whatever feels comfortable to you. But just those nice inhales and exhales, just a few deep breaths together. And while we're taking some of these deep breaths, we want to take time to acknowledge that there are survivors in our training today and the survivors that we will help and that may exist in our community. We want to take a moment here to appreciate ourselves for coming to this training and learning more about sexual assault survivors and how to help them. And we want to acknowledge the damage that interpersonal violence, like sexual assault, does to everybody and does to our community. And with that, we want to commit to a gentle and honest conversation as we learn together and talk together today. I want you to take care of yourselves as we do this work. So that may mean taking a few deep breaths. That may mean stepping out of the presentation. That may be coming back to it later. So just know that you may have some strong feelings today, and that's okay and totally normal. Allow your breathing to return to normal if it hasn't already. And just enjoy a couple more gentle inhales and exhales. Just spending this next moment in quiet before we begin. And when you're ready, you can start to come out of this breathing exercise by wiggling fingers and toes, maybe blinking eyes open if they were closed, maybe shrugging your shoulders, moving your head back and forth. And we'll begin. So, let me see which clicker's which now. All right. I think I found it. Great. We are rolling now. So I want to tell you a little bit about MCASA and what we do at the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault. So on the screen here, you will see our mission and our vision. So MCASA is the federally recognized state coalition. So all the states in the U.S. have a coalition. We all work a little bit differently, but we are a collective voice for sexual assault survivors and service providers, people that help them in the state. And what you'll see on the screen is our mission and our vision. So our vision that we share with many other residents and organizations is that Maryland will be a state free of sexual violence. So when we come to work every day, this is what we're working for. And our mission, and I like reading our mission because I just think it's short and really to the point of the work that we do. Our mission is to help prevent sexual assault, to advocate for accessible, compassionate care for survivors of sexual violence, and to hold offenders accountable. So this is the work that we really, this is what centers our work, you could say. So MCASA has two divisions, and the way I like to think about them is we have like a consulting firm that goes out and works with people that serve survivors. So that is law enforcement, that is people that work in emergency rooms, that is people that work in schools like counselors or teachers or teachers' aides. That is people that work at our local rape crisis centers or mental health professionals. So we help them with training, technical assistance. Technical assistance is the government's fancy word for expert advice. So people can just call us up and say, hey, I've got this question. I want some help with this. I've heard this trend, and we will help them find the answers that they need. The other division to MCASA is the Sexual Assault Legal Institute. And I will say that Sally is what we call them for short. Sally is a free law firm for sexual assault survivors in Maryland. So if you know of a survivor or you have a survivor that is in your church or a friend or in your family that has questions about the law, they can call Sally and get the answers that they want for free. They can talk to a legal advocate or an attorney, and they can help give them the information they need to make their own decisions. Our attorneys are never going to say, you have to do this, you have to report. They don't focus on the criminal justice system. They focus on giving survivors information so that they can make the decision that's best for them. And we're going to talk a little bit more about their services when we get to another part of the presentation. The other thing I like to mention when talking about the Sexual Assault Legal Institute is about 6 years ago. Can you hear me? Yep, okay. So MCASA started working on a statewide program with the Attorney General's Office and the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention. It's called the SAKI program, Sexual Assault Kit Initiative. So if anybody in here is a fan of Law & Order, SVU, or pretty much any other crime show that deals with sexual assault, you may be familiar with evidence collection kits. Sometimes they're called rape kits. Maryland had more than 6,000 rape kits that were sitting on shelves, not being tested. And so this initiative that started 6 years ago is to get those tested and to make sure that none of those get shelved in the future. And so we have worked on thousands and thousands and thousands of these getting tested, and some of those survivors getting some real justice, finding the person that assaulted them, having that person charged. So we've been working on that as well. So if you hear us talking about SAKI, that is our sexual assault kit initiative to make sure that the testing of kits is happening in our state. The other thing that MCASA does is we lobby. And so for those of you that are like, oh no, please don't talk about government. I don't like government and politics. I totally understand that. But some of our work is really dependent on the laws that are passed in this state. And we also do some federal lobbying, particularly funding. So our executive director is a registered lobbyist in Annapolis. She spends months and months and months in Annapolis during session trying to get laws passed that help survivors, trying to make sure that state money that is due to our organizations is coming to our organizations, and that we have a really strong relationship with the people that are leading our state. So I'll give you an example. This past year, they tried to cut, how much was it? $10 million from victim services that was being cut out of the state budget. And our executive director, along with a lot of other people, got that $10 million back into the budget before it was passed. So that would have been devastating to lose that money. It was 10 million out of 60 million. And like when 60 million sounds like a lot of money for like my pocket, but it's not a lot of money in the state budget, and it's not a lot of money to be spread out amongst all of Maryland's survivors. So 10 million was going to be a huge cut, and she was able to help get that funding back. She also got an extra $1 million for rape crisis centers specifically, and then $4 million re-sent into that sexual assault kit initiative. They were going to take $4 million of that testing fund. So this is why politics can be really important for helping survivors. So if you're not interested in government and politics, I totally understand, but that's one of the reasons that MCASA is here, so that we can keep those connections in with our lawmakers and our budget setters in the state. So the last thing I want to tell you about MCASA before we get into some of our other work is that we have a very active social media and mailing list. So I always like to invite people to, if you're on social media, join us on any of these, Facebook, X, Instagram. I'm not on most of those, so if you're like, I don't do that, I totally get it. I don't either. But if you are on social media, this is the fastest way to learn more about sexual assault. You're going through, and our social media is supportive of survivors, and it helps give you just little tidbits of information to build your knowledge about services. So I invite you to join that. If you have your phone right now, you're welcome to do it right now. And we also have a mailing list where we send out information about our trainings and information about some of the laws we're working on. So if that's an interest to you, please, please join us. We would love to see you on those platforms. So let's get started with the bulk of what we're doing today. So I am going to pass out, we're going to do just a little icebreaker. And for those of you that are like, oh, I hate icebreakers, sorry, we're going to do it anyway. So I'm going to pass out a piece of paper to everyone and a pen. And so I'm going to take a minute to do that. When you get your piece of paper and your pen, you're going to write your name on your piece of paper, however you want your name to be. Super. All right, there are the pens. And I'll help pass out the paper. You're going to write your name however you want. If you want to decorate it, you can do that. Whatever you want to do, you just have to put your name on the piece of paper. So I'm going to put my mic down, pass these out, and when you get it, put your name on it. Oh, you need one. Oh, my goodness. Thank you for helping me pass those out. There you go. All right. So, piece of paper. Did everyone get one? So we're going to move around a little bit today, so don't get too comfortable in the specific seat you're in. Once you have your name on your piece of paper, you're going to find someone, anyone in the room. It can be the person next to you, it can be the person a couple rows away, and you're going to trade papers with them. So they're going to get your name, and you're going to get their name. So go ahead and trade papers. You can move around. And we're going to sit in groups in a couple of minutes. So feel free to just sit in a group of a couple people. We're going to do a count off by threes kind of situation. Did you ladies trade? So make sure you don't have your own name. You can trade around a little bit if you want. Feel that like this feels a little bit like Secret Santa. It's not. You're not going to be buying a gift for this person. Not today anyway. So does everyone have a new name? All right. So with your new piece of paper, your new name, you are going to change this piece of paper somehow. You can fold it, you can tear it, you can write on it, but you're going to change it before you give it back to that person. I've done this lots of times with lots of different groups. I did have a group of college men one time try to eat their piece of paper. Do not recommend trying to eat it, but that's technically changing it, so please don't put it in your mouth. I see this woman in the back that's like, what? No, for real, for real. But you can do whatever you want. You just have to change this piece of paper. You can change it really dramatically. I had someone fold one into a swan one time. That was cool. So yeah, just change it somehow. Make this piece of paper different than when you saw it. The more creative, the better. Creativity is not required, but the more creative, the better, because we're going to have some examples. So just take some time. And really make this piece of paper look different. I see some fans and some airplanes. These are great. You all are doing a great job. I love it. So make it look different. It's okay. Now you have a new one to alter. That one looked beautiful. Yeah, make it look different. Yeah. Oh, I have. I had someone put one in a water bottle one time and just hand the water bottle back to the person. Yep, I've had them shred it, fold it, scribble on it, all kinds of things. Yep, there aren't rules here, so you can, except I do not advise putting it in your mouth. But you didn't seem like a group that was going to do that anyway. Before my time at the Maryland Coalition Against Sexual Assault, I worked for 17 years in higher ed on college campuses, so did a lot of training with like 18 to 24-year-olds, which was super fun. But I did have to give them some other rules that I don't think I have to give this group. One being, please don't dance on the table while I'm presenting, which happened. And the other one being, please don't put anything I give you in your mouth, which you're like, that sounds a lot like preschool. It was. Maybe not giving preschoolers enough credit on that. But lots of fun with college students. You give it, yes, exactly. This woman is on, she's like, let's get going. Give it back to the person who originally had it with their name on it. So find the person whose name was on it, give it back to them. So find the original person and give it back to them. So now that you have your own name back, I want you to make this piece of paper look exactly like it did before you handed it over. I see someone shaking their head, so make it look exactly like it did before. So she's shaking her head. You can't. Why not? Someone glued yours. Where did you get glue? Where'd you get glue? Okay, I'm going to use yours as an example. I love it. May I see yours?
Well, yes. They didn't glue it. They wrapped it so tightly.
Oh, yeah.
A gift, a present, something like that.
So Mike's not getting back to the original.
Yeah,
No. You can have that back. It's all folded up. Anyone think they're close? No? No? Can I look at yours? Whoa. Okay. Sasha's, did you put the heart on there? Oh, so Sasha has this really cute one with a heart. It looks like a Kleenex now. It looks like this came out of somebody's pocket. Yeah. This is not going back to the original. Thank you, Sasha. Anyone else have a really good one that I can use as an example? Yeah, or like never going back to the original. It's never going to go back. Who had the airplane? Over there? Spaceship, airplane. Oh, look at this. Can I use yours? She didn't even try. She was just like, this is how it is, y'all. Like, I'm not even going to try to make it go back to the original. So, this is to introduce us. Oh, can I use yours for a second? Can I use yours? Look at this. Did you do that heart, that flower? Oh my gosh. This one's so dear. Look at it. She did these cute little doodles. She put this beautiful flower on it, but it's still not going back to the original. Pretty, but not going back to the original. So we start off this way because this is a great way to get us starting to thinking about sexual assault survivors. This can be very much like their experience. They have this nice piece of paper with their name on it. You handed it over to someone else, and you all followed my directions. Make it different. Did anyone ask the person whose name was on it if they could do something to that piece of paper? No. Now, to be fair, I did not tell you to do that. Did you say she did ask? Nice. She's 45 slides ahead of us on the consent slide. You're excused. You know all the things. No, I'm just kidding. Please stay. So this is a great way for us to think about what might happen when someone's experienced sexual trauma or any kind of trauma. And many of you probably have your own experiences about something that changed you. You're just heading on the road of life and something happens, a car accident, a medical diagnosis, an act of violence, and it's changed you, not with your permission, not because you wanted it to, and now your paper is either wrinkled or cut or it has drawings on it, and you're not going to go back to that original piece of paper. That does not mean that that is bad. You can thrive and survive after those things. So it doesn't mean that a survivor is damaged. It doesn't mean that a survivor is not the same person that they are, they're still who they are. They just have this other stuff that's happened to them. They may have some healing they want to do. They may have some justice that they want to do. But we want to think about that when we think about survivors. They aren't the same person they were before that sexual assault, but that does not mean that they are damaged or something, or they cannot heal or survive or thrive after that experience. So let's talk a little bit more about what sexual violence really is. And we are going to break into groups in just a second. So there we go. There I am. So as we're going through and we're thinking about sexual assault, sexual harm, sexual violence, and the survivors that we want to care for in our community, or maybe in our family, or maybe ourselves, let's think about this activity, about how things change us a little bit. And what that might mean and how a survivor might experience that. But in order for us to continue this conversation, we want to talk about what sexual violence is and get everyone kind of on the same page. So I will say that this is the one kind of part of our conversation today where we're going to use some language that might be uncomfortable, not swear words. I'm not going to curse, especially not in a church. But we are going to use some words that might spark a little emotion. That's okay. You can sit with it. You're welcome to leave. You can kind of come and go as you please. I will not be offended. I want you to feel comfortable. But I also invite you to stay to that edge of comfort to learn a little bit about all of the terms that we put under this sexual violence umbrella. So at its core, sexual violence is an unwanted or forced sexual act. This is just a couple-word definition that covers a lot. So it is a sexual act without freely given consent. Got my consent expert in the back corner there. Nice. Or someone who cannot give consent. So that could be because of their age, because of some kind of like medication or substance they're on, so they can't give consent. That could be because they're unconscious or sleeping or not able to give consent in that way. So there's not freely given consent, or the person cannot consent. So sexual violence is rooted in power and control. And we're going to talk a lot about power and control in a minute. A lot of times people will talk about sexual violence, not people that have been working in it for a while, but they'll say things like it's a miscommunication or they didn't understand. This is not the root of sexual assault. The root of sexual assault, the root of all interpersonal violence, gender-based violence, you'll hear all those terms, is power and control. It's somebody taking power away from someone else, someone controlling someone else. It is a crime. And at the very least, it's something that causes harm. So it's when someone's taking away someone else's right to make decisions about their own body or what they want to do with it. So it's not about sex. Sex is the weapon that they use to interact this power and control on someone. So there are a lot of terms under sexual violence. So we often will say that it's like an umbrella of terms, and there's a lot of things under this. So I want to give you a chance to talk in some groups a little bit and see if you can come up with some things that fall under the sexual violence umbrella. So we are going to count off, how many people do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So let's count off by groups of 4. So we're going to count off by 4, and we're going to break into those groups. I'm going to let you decide in the room where you want to go, and then I'm going to give your group some sticky notes. And you're just going to write on there what you think falls under this umbrella of sexual violence. And this is participating at your own comfort level. So if this is making you uncomfortable and you don't want to participate, you can just sit in your group and be like, I'm out for this one. If you do want to participate at that own comfort level. So we're going to start in this corner, counting off by 4s. Sometimes this is the hardest part of my presentation for people to count off by 4s. But I have confidence that this group's going to be able to do it. So if you want to start with 1. Oh, she already went. Oh, so where were we at? Are you? Okay, you're 1. And it's cool, you're 1. Do you guys want to be in the same group? Okay. Do you guys want to participate? Okay. Do you want to participate? 4. All right. So I'm going to have maybe 1s anywhere in this group. Just get together. Just sit together. 2s over here. 3s up here. 4s up here. Take your time. Get in your group. If you don't know someone in your group, introduce yourselves. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. I'm going to leave this on the floor up here, and you're going to, when you're done, you're going to put your sticky notes underneath this umbrella, and then we're going to have a little discussion together. I'll give you probably, take about 4 or 5 more minutes. I'll give you some warnings. Yeah, when you're done, you can put them underneath the umbrella. Okay, friends, let's take about 1 more minute and go ahead and stick them on this board up here. Helping anywhere you want. You're the first one. You have to get on there really good. These are not official posters.
Get really, really good.
Look at how smoothly you got her to do that your work for you there.
Go away. My dress is short, so I don't want to bend.
Yeah. Wherever you want. You can go anywhere on the board.
Okay.
The more you cover up my umbrella, probably the better.
She have to see what we put up there. I know that everybody can. All right, good.
Oh, yeah, this is one.
Okay, anybody else while I'm doing here? Once you get up, go up and bend on the step. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, thank you. That was a lot of work. You had to do everyone's work. All right, friends. Do we have any more? Oh, we do have some more sticky notes. So bring them on up. Bring them on up. You can put them anywhere. You don't have to be neat about it. Oh my gosh, yours are so cute. This group has one sticky note. Let me get out my magnifying glass here. Oh my gosh, so cute. Oh my gosh. Oh wow. Nope, they're perfect. Oh, nice. All right, friends, did we get all the sticky notes? Did we get all the sticky notes? Okay, friends. First of all, give yourselves a little round of applause. You did amazing with this activity. Oh, we have a couple more. One of the reasons that we do this when we're talking about sexual assault is there are a lot of terms that we use: sexual assault, sexual violence, sexual harm, and they're often interchangeable. And we run into this a lot at MCASA because sometimes we use those terms because we don't want to use the other terms because they make us uncomfortable. It's totally fine that they make us uncomfortable, but sometimes we have to name the harmful acts so that we can really help to care for the survivors who endured those harmful acts. So this also gives us an idea of all the things that fall under those terms of sexual violence and sexual harm that are more general. So you did such a beautiful job with this. I'm actually going to leave it up here so when we take some breaks you can look at it. But I want to point out some of the things that people put on here. Oh, some of them are just really great. There's one on here that says, like crunch hugs. Like when someone hugs you and they try to squeeze the life out of you. I'm actually going to agree with that one. I've never had that one before. But yeah, crunch hugs, that is there. So someone touching your body or doing something to you that does not make you feel comfortable or you did not consent to. So the interesting thing with crunch hugs, you need me to go louder? Oh, you want to hold it? Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, you're the best assistant. You can tell I usually have someone else presenting with me. Oh yeah. So crunch hugs is a great example, right? Because is that about someone giving you a comforting hug, or is that about power and control? So that is where you can kind of tell the difference between someone maybe hugging you and you not appreciating it, right? Because you don't want to be hugged. But their intention was not power and control. So that's kind of a misstep, right? But someone hugging you after you said, please don't touch me, that's about power and control. So let's look at some of these other ones. We've got abuse. So that would be a chronic incidences, like many incidences of sexual assault would constitute abuse. Child porn, absolutely. There are several different versions here of rape, including rape within marriage, child rape, date rape, all of those things, absolutely. Exposing yourself, flashing, very good. Sexting and texting and stalking, all of those. So sexting in and of itself is not sexual assault because both parties are consenting. But if someone is not consenting, so they're receiving text messages and pictures that are of a sexual nature, and they're like, no thank you, please stop sending these, and they continue to send them, that would be under sexual harm. So these are amazing. I also love how this group put some things in here about what can be caused by this. So I see fear, I see trauma, I see harm. All those things are what someone might experience if they experience one of these things under the umbrella. Unwanted touching, brushing against someone. Oh yeah, like if you've ridden the metro. Oh, yes, sexual harm, right? Like some people, yeah. Yeah, not good, not good. Grooming, we're going to talk about grooming a little bit. So absolutely, dirty jokes, great one. All of those things can be under this umbrella of sexual harm. You can go ahead and put that down. I'm going to, put it right there, perfect. So I'm going to leave this up here so you all can look at it too. But this is You went above and beyond some of the ones on my list. So I do have the umbrella with some of the things that we have under there. But most of them you got. The one I didn't say yet is trafficking. So sex trafficking. So trafficking would be any situation where somebody would be benefiting from the sexual exploitation of someone else. So with children, 100%, it is always sexual assault. It's always against the law, always sexual harm. Even if somebody is consenting to be trafficked, it's still against the law. It's still considered sexual assault. So I want to dive in a little bit more so excellent job in creating our list of what constitutes sexual harm. I also want to point out that when it comes to sexual assault and sexual harm, it can be anybody. This is oftentimes we kind of have an image in our head, maybe of who would be a sexual assault survivor. And I want you to erase that image, and I want you to consider that anybody could experience sexual harm. This could be somebody who, I lost a page here. This could be somebody who is young. This could be somebody who is old or older. This could be men. It could be women. It could be boys. It could be girls. It's people of every different race, every different religion, every different socioeconomic status. Sexual assault does not just happen to one person. But I do like to say that because it's about power and control, people that have less power in our society or in a situation are more at risk. Not because of who they are, not because of anything that they have done, but it's because the way our society might view that person. So for example, children, and children of maybe a socioeconomic background, or children that are maybe immigrant children that don't speak our language very well, they don't have a lot of power in our society, right? So they may be more vulnerable to sexual assault because someone thinks that they can take advantage of them and will use those vulnerabilities to harm them instead of helping them and bringing them into the community. So when we think about survivors, we want to think about people, victims of sexual assault. So let me back up. Victims of sexual assault in the context of power and control, not in the context of anything that they have done. So it's never their fault. This is about power and control. This is about how someone has taken advantage of them. Yeah. Yeah, immigration status. So residential status, so immigration status, and this will happen in domestic violence as well. If one partner has status in the country, maybe they're a citizen, maybe they were born here, maybe they have papers, working papers, whatever, but the person that they are abusing or assaulting does not, they will use that power to silence that person. Yeah, so, and that's actually pretty, unfortunately can be pretty common. And there's usually other barriers to that person reporting. Maybe English is their second language, or they don't speak English at all. Maybe they are financially dependent on that person who is a U.S. citizen. Maybe they don't have a driver's license. So there's lots of barriers, not that person's fault, not their fault they don't have a driver's license or they're dependent on this person. It's not their fault that someone is using those things to enact harm on them. So I'll pause here actually. Any other questions before we go on to our next activity? Yeah. Sure. So the question is, we have emotional on our umbrella. You've got a front row seat to the umbrella. So I would put like emotional, fear. I saw another one on here too. Anger, trauma. So I would put those as all, maybe reactions to sexual assault. So you might be emotional after being assaulted. And what I'm glad you brought this up. So what I would say is we also have expectations on how someone should act if they were sexually assaulted. They should cry, they should be upset, they should be angry. We need to release that. Who knows how they'll react? And if you've experienced trauma, like maybe you were in a car accident and you were laughing about it, that's not your fault. Like you're like, why would someone be laughing about it? That's just how their brain and body are processing that trauma. Sometimes sexual assault survivors completely shut down. It's like they kind of go to a different place, which is also totally normal. Sometimes they become really angry and aggressive, and we're like, we don't really like helping angry and aggressive people, but that's not fair. Like, that's just how they are reacting to that trauma. And most of the time, it's a whole cycle of things. It's like a whole bunch of emotions. MCASA does a training on the neurobiology of trauma. So like what happens to your brain when you experience a trauma. And it's so interesting. I'll just tell you this story because this group is so brilliant. So sometimes we have to testify in front of our state legislators. It's super fun, let me tell you. I'm being sarcastic. And they love to talk about what they would do if something bad happened to them. Right? Like, right? They love to be like, well, if I was in that situation, I think I would run, or I think I would fight back. And every time they do that, I want to be like, come on, man, you don't know what you would do. The adrenaline, the cortisol, the stuff in your brain takes over. You don't actually get a logical choice about what you might do. And so when we see and we hear about, or a survivor shares a story and they're like, I couldn't move, or I couldn't hear, or I couldn't talk, or my mouth went dry, or I ran really fast, that's how their brain and body are reacting. And that's all normal. But I just love when the legislators are like, well, if that happened to me, I'm like, come on, you do not know what you would do. Like, and so let's not judge what someone's reaction was to some kind of trauma. Let's just know that that's how they reacted, and then help support them from there. And for yourself, if you experience some kind of trauma, whether that's violence or something else, you can be forgiving of how you reacted. It's what your brain and body were doing at that time to keep you alive. And that is what happened. So, you know, if you were in a car accident and you froze, or if you had a medical diagnosis that was really traumatic and you laughed, like that's just your brain and body trying to keep you alive. Like, and that's really okay. So it was a little bit of a side quest into the neurobiology of trauma. But that's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. There's a range of emotions that a survivor might experience. So, okay, so let's talk about, we're gonna go into our next activity. So we talked about it never being the victim's fault. We talked about power and control, and we got a question. Yeah. Yeah, men and women can both be victims, absolutely. Boys and girls, absolutely. So I think the easiest way to answer this question about culture and ignorance is people will use both of those to exert the power. They'll use the culture of their community or their family to exert that power. And that is different than like being maybe, that's maybe different than what the culture would do. So they'll use it to create barriers to the survivor reporting. They'll use gender 100% And it really, it silences a lot of male survivors because they'll be like, I should be the strong one. I shouldn't be abused. And I'll give you a good example of gender-based violence with men and women in a second. In the United States, though, if you are in the United States, but you're from a different place or you have a different culture, if you break the law, you break the law. And I actually worked with international students for a long time, and I had some students, they were graduate students, so they were older, from Saudi Arabia, and one of the women came to one of my colleagues and told her about abuse, and she told her husband, we live in the United States now, I have rights, like flat out, and then she pursued every healing justice thing that she could pursue. Like, I have rights here now. So in the United States, like, if you break the law, you break the law. And even if you don't break the law, but you make someone feel uncomfortable, there's still healing and support out there for you. But don't think that people from other cultures didn't try to silence her by saying, this is our religion, this is how it should be, you need to be, I can do whatever you want to you. That's not how we would approach it here. And I think when someone says something like, this is my culture, or this is our society, or this is whatever, challenge that, because they're probably using that to cause harm. Like, that's been like the tradition. And when you look at huge institutions that have had a history of sexual assault, so I will use like, I have some friends that work in the scouting like area. They volunteer with like Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts in Maryland just got another huge lawsuit of like all of this harm that they have done. Does that mean everyone in scouting does that? Absolutely not. Scouts can be great. But some people use that culture to silence folks, to take advantage of folks, to harm folks. So if they're like, well, this is just how we do things in the Scouts, that's where those red flags come out. This is just how we do things. This is just how it's supposed to be. If it's causing harm, that's not how it's supposed to be. So that's how I would kind of answer that. And thank you for bringing that up. And the last thing I would talk about with gender-based violence specifically, this is a little different than sexual assault. But in areas of abuse that cause physical harm, men or women could be committing that harm. But a lot of times you might hear it from men. I'm not a very big person, so I get it. There are a lot of men in the world that are bigger and stronger than me. Not all of them would cause me harm. Most of them would never cause me harm. But I am never going to look at a power and control situation and be like, I got the muscles to take this guy down. That is not my area of strength. So you don't see that as much. It's not because women don't want to exert power and control. They just might do it in a way where they have more power. So where I saw it the most in domestic violence was money. The partner had given the woman control over all their money, took out credit cards in his name, didn't pay bills forever, put them in debt, because that's where she had the power, right? So still abuse, not physical abuse, but still domestic abuse, still power and control, but she had power in the money, not in the physical part of it. So I think, a lot of times, we'll think about those things, but you want to go back always to the power and control, where, like, that is the part of, that is where the abuse is, that's where the sexual violence is, the harm is the power and control. So that is when you're having a hard time wrapping your head around someone that might be experiencing abuse, think about it through that lens of power and control. Did someone exploit that? And we are actually, this sets us up great for, I'm so excited, this sets us up great for the next activity. All right, so we talked about power and control. So what we're gonna talk about now in your group is I want you to think about and write on your sticky notes, like different relationships where there might be a difference in power and control, or there might be a difference in power, not control. So relationships where one person has more control than another person. And I'll give you a little bit, power is not bad. It is not bad to have power or influence or responsibility. All of us have it in some way, shape, or form. You could say, I have some power in this room because I've got the microphone. Not a lot of power, like you invited me here, I would never abuse that. But teachers and students, there's a power differential there. Most teachers are amazing. They would never abuse that power and influence. But we want to talk about those relationships a little bit. So talk in your group about relationships where one party in the relationship has power responsibility, or influence over the other party. So I just gave you one, parent or teacher, I slipped on that one, someone else can use that. Teacher and student, there's a power differential there. There's a million of these, so take about 3 minutes, write them on your sticky notes, and we're gonna put them on another piece of paper. Oh, you need some more sticky notes? Oh, it's because you're so good. I'm gonna pass out the sticky notes while you're thinking of it. Okay, friends, take about another minute. When you're ready, come up here and put them on. Take about 30 more seconds and then get them on the board up here. We already have some great ones. All right, when you're ready, you can come load up the white paper. These are genius already. They're so good. Oh, that's a brilliant one. You all are getting ones that like nobody else ever gets. Great. Oh, that one's so good. No. Get it in there. Doctor, patient, super. All right, friends, did we get them all? Oh, these are so good. Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. All right, so I'm going to read some of these out loud. Did we get all of them? I don't want to move on too quickly. All right. So these are just a couple of the examples. So we've got popular student to non-popular students, friend to friend. Sure, can friends be controlling? Yeah. Supervisor to staff, pastor or priest to congregation and parishioners, absolutely. The president to the people, and that could be any president. That could be like our president of the country, but it could also be like the president of your board or the president of, some kind of community organization. Doctor to patient, absolutely. And I love the doctor to patient one because sometimes power is like situational, right? So if I'm in my doctor's office and I'm sick or they're reading test results, they've got some power, right? But if I'm grocery shopping and my doctor's there, they don't really have power over that. I mean, they might be judgy of what's in my cart because my cholesterol is high. But like generally speaking, the situation gives that person power because I'm in their office. Absolutely. We've got caregiver to an elder. Absolutely. Same thing happens with caregiver and someone that might have disabilities, like a disability. Absolutely. Police officers to civilians. Yes. Here's another one I missed. A chaperone, like a trip on a chaperone, and the kids that are on the trip. Absolutely. Grandparent to grandchild. There's a lot of parent to child up here as well. So you can see that in many of these situations. Let me look at my little one. I want to make fun of this for being so little, but they're so smart that I cannot make fun of it. So brilliant. So one of the ones on here, a couple that I want to point out, skin tone was on here on their list, and then experienced versus inexperienced. The place I see this is college freshmen compared to upperclassmen, or high school freshmen compared to upperclassmen, experienced to inexperienced. That can happen in the workplace. And then rich and poor. So someone that has money compared to someone that might not have money, sure. Those are brilliant. So you'll see I circled some of them on here. So in many of these situations, the person that has power or influence and responsibility, they're not abusing it. They're taking that really responsibly. So like you might have that situation where a teacher didn't use that for power and control. They used that in the way they're supposed to as a teacher. Or you may have parents that, sure, your parents have control over you, but they also maybe were loving and took care of you and did not use that, that position as a parent to exploit or exert power and control over you. So in many situations, power is fine. But in situations where there's a big power dynamic, there's always the possibility that someone could use that power to harm the other person. And I put a lot of rings around the ones up here that involved an age difference, that involved children. So why are children at risk for sexual assault or sexual harm? Because they don't have a lot of power. They're kids. They're little. It's our responsibility as adults to protect them. But there are adults that may exploit them. And so one of the things I was asked to do when this presentation, when I was talking to Tamika and Stacy, was we wanted to talk about 3 different kinds of sexual assault. So I wanted to go into those with a little bit more detail, particularly child sexual abuse, because you are in a church where there are children. So anybody in any environment where there are children, it's good for them to know a little bit about sexual assault or the sexual harm of children. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I'm going to give you what you need to know as folks that may work with children. And if you are interested, and I can send it to Tamika to send out, if you work with children a lot, so you're a Sunday school teacher or you're going on a youth trip, MCASA has an online free training that goes into way more detail on all of this. So if that interests you. I mean, I could spend all day talking about preventing child sexual abuse. But let's talk about some of the major things. So first I want to talk about the law. So in Maryland, Maryland's a little different than some other states where there are kind of 2 laws that talk about harm to children. So in order for something to be considered child sexual abuse in Maryland, it has to meet one of these 3 standards. So the first one is a parent or someone that lives in the child's home. So this is someone that has like permanent or temporary residence in their home. So a parent, a family member, so maybe it's a cousin that lives in their home. Maybe it's a grandparent that lives in their home. So if that is the person abusing the child, that's considered child sexual abuse. The other thing is it could be someone who exercises authority over the child because of their position or because of their situation. So one of the ones on here was chaperone and youth. That would be someone who has authority over that child. A teacher would have authority. The one that wasn't on here, but you'll see a lot, is a coach. A coach has authority over that child. So that would be child sexual abuse. The third one is trafficking. Anyone that is using a child to financially gain from sexual encounters, that's child sex trafficking, and that is always child sexual abuse. So these are the 3 things that constitute child sexual abuse. This is where mandatory reporting comes in, and this is where the Child Protective Services would investigate. Now, what if a child is harmed by someone not in authority, not living in their house, not a family member, or not trafficking? Still a crime, not a child sexual abuse crime. So they consider that like assault of a minor. So this could be like if a child's playing in their backyard and like the neighbor comes over and assaults them. Still a crime, but not child sexual abuse. So the big difference is who investigates it. Child Protective Services would investigate if it was child sexual abuse. So that's someone that has authority over that child. The police would investigate if it's abuse of a child. The important thing for you to remember is child sexual abuse, so a person that has authority, that's a mandatory report. The other one is not a mandatory report. So a stranger or a neighbor or someone who doesn't have control over that child. My advice to everyone is if a child is being harmed, help them. Don't worry about the law. Don't worry about those things. You're not to investigate. You're just to help them. So that is the best advice I can give is if the child is being harmed sexually by someone in their home or something happened to them when they were walking home by a stranger, you still want to give them the help that they need. So we want to talk a little bit about grooming, because grooming can happen in places where children are. Grooming is the term where a perpetrator spends time with a child and tries to gain their trust so that they can harm them, so that they can commit some harm against them. And there are several different techniques that they might use. So some of these are on the screen. They might give the child gifts. They might share private secrets with the child. They might ask the child to break rules. They might take action that the child would find threatening. So they might threaten the child. So these are all things that they will do. Where this gets tricky is you've probably all given a child a gift, right? Yeah, I see some folks shaking their hands. Or had candy in your pocket or a box of raisins that you've given to a kid. You might have some kind of secret with a kid. So the difference between a grooming secret and another secret is everyone else knows your secret. The secret is, oh, don't tell grandma that we got a cake for her birthday. That's an okay secret, right? Everybody knows grandma's getting a cake except grandma. My grandmother used to have private secrets with us. She was the worst secret keeper in the world. The worst. She couldn't keep a secret to save her. She was so dear. She was so great. And she would always be like, girls, I have a secret. And we would be like, for sure, you have a secret, Graham. So those kinds of secrets are it's hard, that's fine, oh, I have a secret. I have this surprise for your grandpa. He knew about the surprise every single time. That's different than we have this secret time together that we do things that we don't tell anyone about. We have this secret TV show we watch because that may be too old for the child to watch or something their parents wouldn't approve of. So that's where grooming can get tricky, because some of the behaviors that we have with kids, they're totally fine. We're not exploiting, we're not exerting power over that child, but somebody else that's grooming them is taking that a step further to exert that power and control. So there's some steps to grooming that I think are really interesting to go over in a context where there are children. So the first thing a groomer usually does is pick a target. And they're going to pick the child they can exert the most power and control over. So that could be, so a lot of people will be like, well, they just like this certain type of child. The type of child that a child perpetrator, that someone who perpetrates child sexual abuse, the type of child they're looking for is the one that they can commit the abuse against. So that's really what they're looking for. They want to gain the child's trust. They want to fill a need for the child, and this can be a lot of different things. And for those of you that might be parents or have children in your life as grandchildren or nieces and nephews, what a child thinks they need and what you think they need are different. So this filling a need could be candy, it could be screen time, it could be all kinds of things that your child thinks they need, but you don't. You know that your child doesn't need more screen time or candy, but they're filling a need for that child. And that's how they're gaining trust. They might try to isolate the child. They might start with some non-sexual physical touching, so they'll start to test those boundaries. And then they might, they will every time do something to maintain control over the child. That's usually in the form of threat. I'll take the candy away. I'll hurt your mom if you tell me. If you tell, you're going to have to move. If you tell, I won't be able to hang out with you anymore. So those are some of the things. We could talk about grooming all day, but I don't want to do that because I think this is enough for you to know a little bit about what happens when children are sexually abused so that you can think about decisions that you might want to make in instances where children are in your church, being chaperoned, in youth groups, in Sunday school. So you want to counter these things. So you want to make sure that people can't take a child by themselves. You have some rules against that so they can't isolate a child. If a child needs a ride to church, maybe instead of one person doing that every time, you share that responsibility. So it's not that child being really dependent on this one person, but maybe they have a couple people that they are really building their community around. And kind of counter some of those things. You're not going to be able to change the behavior of the perpetrator. You're going to be able to change the environment that your children are in to make that safer. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to child sexual abuse is mandatory reporting. So if you suspect that a child is experiencing some kind of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, or neglect, you want to call the local Department of Human Services. This is their general number. You don't have to investigate. It's not your job to ask the child questions. It's not your job to provide proof. It's just your job to call them and tell them what you've observed, and then let the pros take it from there. I have had to do this in my role as a victim advocate, and it's really scary, right? It's a really terrifying thing until you do it one time. The operator on the other end is like, name of the child, location, all this stuff. If you don't know, you don't know. You just tell them you don't know. I will say, if people have had experience with Child Protective Services, it varies by county, it varies by person. Sometimes you might get someone who's really great, sometimes you might get someone who's really frustrating. So I always like to kind of say that up front, because people have varying experiences with them. And when it comes to children, I'm sure you all feel the way that we feel. They should be cared for in the best way possible. Sometimes our systems don't do that the way that they should. So I will be very honest with that. But this is the responsibility if you think a child is being abused or neglected. This is a really heavy topic. I only spent a couple minutes on it just so we could kind of break the ice on it. But does anyone have any questions before I move on to the next thing that we're going to talk about? Yep.
What would you say in a scenario, I don't know if this is something you're going to cover, but a scenario with grooming in adults?
Oh, so they don't call it grooming, but I know what you mean. So let me make sure I know what you mean. Keep the mic for a second. So give me kind of an example a little bit. Is this between a couple that's dating, or is this between someone who's over 18 and it's someone older?
Well, yeah, definitely over 18, they would be legally classified as an adult. I guess in a scenario where it could be romantic, but there's I don't know, there have been situations with people who have a certain level of naivety.
Sure.
It could be within a romantic relationship, within a marriage, but they've been taken advantage of. It might not be sexual exactly, but they've been things like isolation, being separated from their family, having their emotions controlled by the other person without them even realizing it. What would you say about those situations?
So I would say that absolutely happens. We don't usually call it grooming. We usually only use that term for kids, for children. Usually the terms we use in those situations are, this is a big fancy term, coercion. So that's trying to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do, or unhealthy relationships or abusive relationships. So you'll talk about abusive dating relationships. It can happen outside of dating. I worked with a student, it was an international student, and her roommates were convincing her to use her debit card to pay for everything that they were doing. So that's not necessarily grooming, but is that a power and control issue? 100%. Taking advantage of her lack of knowing the language, her lack of her inexperience in the country, her inexperience as a college student to get her money. So those things happen in all kinds of relationships. We usually just use other terms for them, like coercion, abuse, those types of things. But that's very real. Does that answer your question? Yeah, good. We'll go here and then here. Do you have a question too?
Question, kind of comment. One day when I was, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
One day I observed a lady sitting at the bank with her baby, and he seemed to be under 2. And the child was clearly uncomfortable and tired and didn't want to be there. And then I noticed a few, maybe 10 minutes or so later. I don't know if it was a husband. It was a male, so I don't know, husband, boyfriend, whatever. And they were clearly Spanish. I was able to see that. But the baby, my concern was about the baby, because he kept stretching back out, and Mom kept trying to rock him, like settle him down. And they were there for, I don't know how long they were there before I got there, but she was accepting money. She was there. That was the purpose for her being there. And then later on, a male came. He had a brand new car. She took him. They got in the car with him. They rode around a little bit. I don't know if he took him somewhere or whatever, but then they came back. But I think he observed me observing him. So they didn't get out the car right away. And I don't know, it just felt like something that should have been reported, but I didn't know for sure what I was seeing. Let me put it that way.
Well, that's a great point, and that's a great question. And sometimes we don't know. And sometimes you just feel it in your gut. You're like, that does not feel right. I think in that situation, so for us with the sexual assault, there's no sexual harm that we're observing there. So that would be really hard for us to say anything. What I would probably do just as a citizen, maybe talk to the bank security, just like, hey, this happened outside. And they might be like, that makes it. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I had a situation like that happen in a gas station, and I'm not going over there, but I was headed into the gas station to tell their security. But that's different in a bank. So that would be, and it's one of those things where the other thing that people always say is call the police. And I'm not always a fan of that because you don't know what was going on. You don't know how police officers may react. The other thing, you can always call Child Protective Services and tell them what you saw. They probably can't investigate that, but at least they'd have a record of something happened at this time on this street. You don't have to do that, but you could do that. The other thing you might be able to do is if there's a local community resource, is to alert them to it. So if there is a homeless shelter or something there, you could always do that. There's not a lot of good answers there. Situations like that are really, really tough. And what I would say is always be really careful when intervening with something like that. You want your own safety to be the most important thing. You don't want yourself to be in harm. So I'm really sorry that happens. I'm really sorry that you saw it. And I'm really sorry I don't have an answer for it, but I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, let's go right here and then we'll go back there. So did you have a question? Yeah. So this is the interesting thing with the law. Maybe, but in order to be charged, they have to prove that you broke the law. So maybe they broke the law. So the question was that person breaking the law? Maybe. But you have to be able to prove it. And so would anything happen if they broke the law? Maybe not. Would CPS be like, we need to do something with this child? Yeah. Oh, with the adults? Yeah. Coercion? It depends on what they coerce them into doing. If they coerce them into, sexual, a sexual situation, yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, they didn't break the law in that situation because they would say that the student consented to it. So was it a terrible, harmful thing to do? Sure, but she didn't break the law. Yeah. In the situation with the student, they broke the student code of conduct. There's most student code of conducts on colleges, university campuses say something like conduct unbecoming of a student. And it's just a generic term that they can then use to address those types of harm. So did she break the law? No. Did she break the student code of conduct? Yes. And those students were, reprimanded. They weren't thrown out of school. I think that they moved the students around, so they weren't all living in the same place. I think that was the incident. So sometimes coercion doesn't break the law, but it causes harm. And in some situations, there's another form of like remedy, military and situations where, like in colleges or high school students, like sometimes there's like another thing in their code of conduct that will provide justice, but it isn't breaking the law. So does that kind of answer your question? Great. Okay, one more question and then we'll move on.
I wanted to address, on the screen it said mandated reporter. Now, if Karen is a mandated reporter because she's a teacher, but she's not at her school, she's not where she is mandated because if she's employed there, she sees something in the neighborhood at a bank. Is she still a mandated reporter?
That's a great question. So in Maryland, technically, everybody is a mandated reporter except for attorneys and clergy working in their position. So like if your pastor, in his role as a pastor, heard about child sexual abuse, I won't even use your pastor, that's not a great example. It has to do with confession. So in a Catholic church, if someone's in confession and learns about child sexual abuse, they are not legally required to report that. Same thing with attorneys. Like if attorneys have to break client privilege, that they don't have to report. Those are the only two professions, or the only two people who are not mandated reporters. So technically Maryland would say anybody, any citizen that sees child sexual abuse should report it. There isn't for general citizens, in general citizen situations, there isn't a punishment for that. So if I see it, there's not like a reprimand. Other states, in Pennsylvania, it can be up to a year in prison if you don't report it and know about it. Like Pennsylvania has really strict laws because of what happened at Penn State like 15 years ago in the child sexual abuse scandal up there. So their laws are very strict. That's where I worked before I worked in Maryland. So yes, everyone should report, but there's not really a punishment if you don't. That may change. There's some folks that are trying to change that. The difference between the professions, mental health counselors, teachers, medical professionals, nurses, doctors and nurses, is the sanction for them can be different. They can be punished at their job if they don't report. So like a doctor who knows that someone's experiencing sexual abuse, a child experiencing that, and they don't report it, they can lose their medical license. So it's not a legal reprimand as much as it is their profession or the legal system. I don't know how I want to say it, like the legal system stepping in and impacting their profession. So that's kind of the difference. It's a little murky. Like I will tell you it's a little murky, but does that kind of answer your question? So, we could, again, if you have interest in child sexual abuse, I highly recommend, it's easy to find on our website, our online training. You can take it at your own pace. And it is the training that we recommend for like preschool teachers and scout leaders, like the people that are working with children. So let's go on to two more things. So I have a little game that we're going to play to talk about stalking. So we'll talk about stalking. We'll talk about stalking. We'll talk about digital sexual assault for like 1 minute because we could talk about it for hours. And then we'll do one last activity. So for this one, you need a piece of paper and a pen because you're going to tally. All you're going to do is do little tally marks. So we're going to do an activity that I call the Scary Movie Marathon. So I want you to give yourself a point for all of these movies that you might have seen. If you've seen this movie or anything in the realm of this movie, you're going to give yourself a point. So if you have seen any of the Halloween movies, give yourself a point. It doesn't have to be the first one, just any movie. If you've seen the movies starring Jennifer Lopez, The Boy Next Door, give yourself a point. Or if you've seen The Fatal Attraction, the original one that came out in the 80s, or any of the versions. There have been several versions of Fatal Attraction. Give yourself 1 point for Fatal Attraction. If you watch the movie with Beyonce called Obsessed, give yourself a point. If you want to see Beyonce being truly, truly strong, I highly recommend this movie. She's phenomenal in it. If you've seen the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez has been in a lot of scary movies. The movie The Invisible Man. If you've seen the movie Fatal Affair, Nina Long has also been in a lot of scary movies. She's been stalked more than once. If you've seen the movie The Resident, or if you've seen the movie Unforgettable, give yourself a point for each one of those movies. If you've seen the movie Sleeping with the Enemy, give yourself a point. Funny story here. My mom made me watch this movie 4 times the summer before I went to college. That was how I learned about sexual assault, domestic violence, and unhealthy relationships from her. Do not recommend that. If you've seen the movie The Perfect Guy, or if you've seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, give yourself a point. Add up your points. Go ahead. Yeah, give yourself a point if you've seen any of the Friday the 13th. Who has the most? Who has more than 10? Raise your hand nice and high. Anyone have more than 10? Anyone have more than 5? Raise your hand. All right, we've got a couple. Anyone have more than 7? 7, we've got 2 back there. Anyone up here? How many do you have? 9? How many do you guys have back there? 10? 8? Anyone have more than 10? Who had 9? You have 9? Okay, you're going to get my prize too. Because I have a prize for Tamika for inviting me. So you get a prize for being number 10. Or number 9. And Tamika, you're 10. Who's the person next to you? How many did they have? She had 8. All right, Stacy, I'm going to give you a prize as well. 0? Oh, did anyone else have 0? How many people had 0? There's 4 of you that have 0. Let me see what I've got in my bag. Oh my gosh, put your hand up way high if you had 0. Okay, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for you. So the zeros have my heart. So Stacy, I'll get you your prize at the end. So zeros have my heart because I don't like scary movies either. But what all of these movies have in common is that they are about stalking. And what you need to know about stalking is scary. Hollywood knows it. Victims of stalking know it. Perpetrators of stalking know it. And the family and friends of victims know it. Stalking is terrifying. And we often don't consider that. Tons of people that have been stalked hear all kinds of stuff when they've been stalked. Like, oh, you're making too much of this. This person would never hurt you. Like, we need to take stalking seriously because stalking is terrifying. It is harm. And many times people stalk someone with the intention of causing more harm, including sexual harm. That's why we talk about it. So stalking technically, I think I hear the rain. This is the technical definition of stalking. It is illegal. It is a malicious pattern of approaching or pursuing. Oh my gosh, well, I might go beyond 4, y'all, because I'm not going out in that rain. I'll try to wrap up in just a few minutes. But stalking is a malicious pattern of approaching or pursuing someone. So not necessarily touching them, although that can involve it, but it is a pattern. It is something that is repeated. It creates feelings of fear, and it causes serious emotional distress, and it is illegal. What I will say about stalking is, of that big definition, this is what it's helpful for you to remember. It's a pattern of behavior meant to cause fear. And this is usually the perpetrator, not always, but usually the perpetrator knows what the victim is scared of. And they use that to create more fear. And so you, hearing the story of the victim of stalking, you might be like, this doesn't really seem that scary to me. Because it's not scary to you, it's scary to them. It can be very, very personal. And I'll tell you a story of someone I worked with that was stalked. So they had a very abusive boyfriend. They wanted out of the relationship. Took months for them to get out of this relationship with this boyfriend. They told the boyfriend, do not come to my house. Do not return any of my stuff. If you have anything of mine, keep it. I don't want it. I don't want you to talk to me again. I don't want you to come to my house. In the hearing, this was a hearing in a college situation. The boyfriend had returned a bike of hers, like a 10-speed bike, with a bouquet of flowers. So the hearing board doesn't know this other stuff. They're like, oh, that actually seems like kind of a sweet thing. He gave you flowers, returned your stuff, right? I see someone shaking their head, right? In a healthy relationship, in a healthy breakup, that wouldn't be scary. But what he was doing, power and control, coming to her house at night, when people were there, I can get close to you. Using the flowers, oh my gosh, this child is so adorable. You do it, you take that one. I love it. I love the leadership skills of small children. No, you can leave her. She can do whatever she wants. I'll give her the microphone here in a minute. She stays up here. So what that guy was doing, I can get to your house when there are people around at night, and I will make this look like I'm not doing anything wrong. So that is an example of something that doesn't maybe look threatening, but was very, very threatening to her. So when we think about stalking, these are the things we want to think about: a pattern and something that causes fear. So the last thing I want to touch on before we do our last activity is I want to talk about online sexual violence. We could talk about this until Tuesday. I won't do that to you. We all got other things to do today. I see some people shaking their heads. What I will say is we used to kind of consider this an extra category. So 20 years ago, before smartphones, when the internet still felt new, when lots of people weren't using it all the time, we kind of were like, oh yeah, there's this thing called the internet that can be used for harm. Especially after the pandemic, we live our lives so much online that online sexual abuse or virtual sexual abuse is just part of the abuse cycle. We just look at it as not an extra thing, but something that someone can really use to harm someone. So the two most popular things we see when it comes to online sexual abuse are revenge porn. And I will tell you, Maryland uses that in the law. Revenge porn is illegal. We don't like that term because calling it porn makes it seem like the person was consenting, and they were not. And calling it revenge makes it seem like they deserve it, which they do not. So we usually call it non-consensual image sharing. Now, that's not as fun to say as maybe revenge porn for people, like some of our legislators, but that's usually what we call it. So it's non-consensual, so you don't consent to them sharing images or videos of you. And typically people do this in a way to enact some harm on someone because they did something they didn't want them to do, like break up with them. So you'll see it in that context. The other thing we are seeing, yeah, go ahead. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, for anyone to see. Yep. And it could be a recording, and it could be, but it could just be pictures. And this might, for some of you, and this kind of is cringy for me too, sometimes they obtained the recording or the pictures consensually. Yeah. So sometimes they took an image of themselves, and I'll use something really like tame. So they might have taken a picture of themselves kissing or something like that, right? But that was meant for those two people. So imagine all the things that people record and send pictures of. And when we were originally working on this legislation, there were people that were like, well, just stop sending pictures to people. And I'm like, that is literally like telling anyone under 30 to cut off their pinky. Like, that's just not how they do it anymore. Like, they just, it's very common in dating where people would send pictures. Some of them may be very sexy, some of them may not be. But you don't have permission to share that with the world. But after the breakup, then they post it on all kinds of sites. And so that is against the law. It's revenge porn. It's non-consensual image sharing. And I will tell you, this is about a 6-year-old figure. So it's probably more money. It takes about $30,000 to get an image down from the internet that someone has shared. So like our Sexual Assault Legal Institute will help with that. But it's about $30,000 or more. So if you recorded a video with your boyfriend when you were over the age of 18, like 18, 19, 20, you broke up with them and they got mad and they posted that video, it's $30,000 to get that down. And that gives you the idea of like the kind of damage that could do. You can also, sometimes they'll obtain the videos and you don't know about it. So they'll take pictures of you and then they'll post those, but you did not consent to that. And that's still the same crime.
Well, how do you get it back when, like, say it's shared and then I share it and then everybody, like a school, and then the kids just share it. When you pay that $30,000, how do you get it back from all those places that it went?
So you don't get it back from all the places. You would just get it back from where it was posted publicly. So sometimes they'll post it publicly to like public porn sites or public sites. So sometimes you can get it off social media if it's on there. But it costs a lot of money. So you can't get it back. So one of the things that we would say is if there are young people in your life or people that are dating in your life, they don't have to be young, that might be sharing images, is to know once it leaves just educate, once it leaves your phone, you no longer have control over it. Even if it's illegal, it's still out there. It might be illegal to do, but it doesn't mean the whole school didn't see it first. So it's really about, educating people and doing for yourself what you feel is right. So we would never say, don't send sexy pictures to your boyfriend or girlfriend. What we would say is make that decision knowing all of these things. And you as parents or grandparents may say that. You may say, please don't do that. Like, that could be really damaging. This lady at my church told me it cost $30,000. So unless you got $30,000, don't be sending naked pictures. Like, you might want to say that. But what we would say is it is against the law. Make the decision carefully. Know what you're doing. So that is one example of online sexual violence. The other thing that we're seeing is called deep fakes. So it's where somebody makes a video or picture that looks like you, but it's not. That's also illegal. So you didn't share it. It's not you. You'll see this a lot with celebrities. A couple years ago, there were like 8 or 10 celebrities, most of them women, who someone had put like naked pictures of them all over the internet, and it wasn't them. It was just their face. And so that is also illegal. I will tell you, the legislators were very interested in this legislation because they also don't want to be deep-faked. They don't want their image or their video out there that is not actually genuinely them. So that is also against the law. Every time there's new technology, there's someone that's going to exploit it. There's someone who is going to say, we are going to use this for harm. So we are constantly trying to keep up with what that is. So any other questions about that? Okay, so we're going to do one last activity. So if I can just keep you for a couple minutes since we started late. I'm going to have you work in your group one more time. And this is how we're going to end today. I want you, since we are in a church and this is a church community, to talk about how people know you are a church or you are a Christian. So let's set aside the sexual assault stuff for a second. And we're just going to talk about how do people know? How do people know that you're a Christian? How do people know that this is a church? This is not a trick question. This is not a paper activity where I'm going to trick you into, crumpling up papers. This is genuinely, how do people know? How do people know you believe in God? How do they know that you're a church? How do they know that you're a Christian? So I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to do this. So this is a time, this is like a pride thing. So be proud of what you're doing. This is not a trick, I promise you. So 2 minutes. Okay, take about 30 more seconds. If you have a question. This group up front is ready. I love it. Who has the other mic? Do you have the other mic? While we're doing this, I also am going to pass around bookmarks from MCASA. They are Dear Sexual Assault Survivor, We Believe You bookmarks. And on the back of them, they have a QR code that goes to our Dear Sexual Assault Survivor, We Believe You campaign. So these are, if you're a reader, I know I'm a reader, I love books, please take one or take a couple. Are you a reader too? Oh, wish I could stay. We could talk about all the good books we're reading. So please take one. I actually have 2 sets. So if you want to take a couple and pass out to people, please do so. They are our beach one and our hiking one, because it's summer, people are going on vacation. So please take as many of these as you want, but I'm going to start passing them around. So our first group here is going to tell us, how do people know that you're a Christian or a church or believe in God?
Okay, so I'm the scribe. So it's in our conversations, it's what we say and what we don't say. We come out and tell them. We tell them about our Christianity, or we tell them about our church, and it's also on the sign. Also in our actions, your kindness, your treatment of others, as well as is your pattern of behavior, not always what you say, but it's how you act consistently, or you are consistently. And also sometimes it's in our dress, how we dress as well, that sets us out from other folks.
Sure, absolutely, great one. So I'm going to go back to, if you want to go back here, I'll get these folks started. So who wants to talk on your group? You want to talk?
So we said kind of the same kind of things. Interactions with people, how do you treat them? The words that we use, smiling, so those nonverbal cues, and kindness.
Same things? Same things? Anyone have anyone different? The next group, did you have anything different? Anything different? So we have our actions, what we say and what we don't say, our conversations, what we wear, kindness. Anything else, any other way that someone would know you were a Christian? Yeah.
I use testimony a lot.
Sure.
In my doctor's office, he may say, you've got this, and I'm like, no, God's got me. Yeah. He's taking care of me. I'm going to be all right. Watch the next time I come here. So I use testimony, or if I'm in the grocery line and there's a sale, or this was marked down and I didn't know about it, and oh, this is on sale. I say, oh, God is good. Jesus, oh, thank you, Jesus. So I mention the name of Jesus and I testify.
Yep. Yep. I love that one. I use thank you, Jesus, a lot, too, mostly around my car keys and when I find them, or anything else I've lost, my wallet. Oh, man, that is a big thank you, Jesus. I agree. So I do this activity because this is also how you let people know that you support and care about sexual assault survivors. So it can be in what you wear, what you post on social media, in your conversations, how you talk to people about it. So like some of you may wear like crosses or some kind of jewelry around, I know during holidays, my mom always used to have like angel pins that she would wear. Like that's a signal to the world that you are a Christian, or you, if you celebrate Christmas, or that you believe in God. So look at it from supporting sexual assault survivors. Our color is teal. So you'll see people with teal ribbons on their cars or on their clothes or on their social media. You'll hear it in conversations. So I liked what you said about what you say and what you don't say. When it comes to things like sexual assault, maybe you talk about consent, or you call that out when it's around. Or you don't tell dirty sexual jokes. I bet nobody in here tells those anyway. But like, it's about what you say and don't say. It's in your conversations. It's physically visible. So when you're thinking about things like your church, I actually brought you some brochures and some bookmarks. So when you're thinking about preventing sexual assault or creating an atmosphere where survivors are welcome, think about the ways you create an atmosphere where people know you're a Christian. And so I'm going to leave you with that. That's a lot to leave you with. But think about ways that as an individual or as a person, if you want to, how would people know that you care about survivors? How would people know that your church embraces and supports people that have been victimized by sexual crime? How will people know you care about preventing child sexual abuse? Will it be in your policies? Will you do something to celebrate Sexual Assault Awareness Month or Domestic Awareness Month? Like, those are the things that I leave you with as you think about what this means for you as an individual, for your community, or for your communities in a community. Like if you have women's groups or Bible studies or things like that, what does this mean for you? We have learned a lot in 2 hours, and I appreciate the little bit of extra time you've given me. But I leave you with that. So thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. Amazing work, which I expected nothing less from this group when we started this. But so grateful. You can just set them on the chair. There's some more bookmarks up here. I also have pens if people want pens. So this is what I leave you with. I will stay a little bit longer if people have any questions or if there's anything that you want to talk about. But other than that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Stacy. And thank you so, so much for spending this afternoon with me and caring about this issue as much as we do.
Great job. Amen. All right, so who of us here has learned something new? Raise your hand if you've learned something new, something that you didn't know before. I say both hands should go up because oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry, I almost forgot this part. I always forget this part, and then my staff is like super mad. So I do have an evaluation for this presentation, so I'm going to get to it really quick. Maybe I'll get to it really quick. Tamika, can you find it, the one with the QR code? So if you have a phone on you, if you can take the evaluation, we are able to do these trainings for free because we have grant funding. So if you can take that evaluation, it takes like 2 minutes. It doesn't even take 2 minutes, honestly. That's super helpful for me. Totally forgot about that. But please snap that with your phone and take that evaluation for me. Let me see. Oh, no. Okay. She's going to put it up while you're talking.
Go back. Okay. No, you're fine. Keep the clicker with you. Raise the roof. Yay. That's the beginning, and Phil will bring it back down. Start it all over. I beg your pardon. We're trying to get the QR code for you guys. Yeah, okay. There we go. Ooh, we got it. There it is. There it is. All right. Technology works when it works. All right, so you guys see the QR code here. You could click on it. And I also wanted to share this, this verse because Stephanie asked us, how would people know that we are Christians? And John 13:35 says, by this, all will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. We're not just loving ourselves. We're not just loving those who are nice, who are, good to us, but we're loving each other, those who are in our neighborhoods. We are loving each other. There are a lot of individuals who are victims, and they wouldn't just come out and tell you that they are victims, but they're going to need your support. They're going to need your love. They're going to need you to just be there. Sometimes they just need to sit in silence, right? So we have to show love to each other and to those who are victims. So I hope you got your bookmarks, because those are definitely wonderful keepsakes. And Stephanie, we just want to thank you so very much for your presentation, because we have learned a lot, and I pray that we can take that with us as we go along. Yes, you can take it with you, Pammy. So let us give Stephanie a wonderful round of applause for this great presentation. Thank you so very much. And we could